Good afternoon. This is Dexter Brooks with HNC Let's Talk Podcast, and I want to welcome everyone to our podcast today. So let's get started.
You're listening to the HNC Let's Talk Podcast, hosted by Dexter Brooks. Thanks for tuning in to HNC Let's Talk Podcast. We partner with subject matter experts to provide candid conversations on health and lifestyle. Here at HNC Let's Talk Podcast, mental, physical, spiritual, financial, and health are all connected. This episode of HNC Let's Talk Podcast is sponsored by HealthNet Co. Together, we make insurance simple.
All right. How is everyone doing today? Let's get started here. Are you there, Rhonda?
I'm here.
Oh, great. I was like, I just gave you this great introductory, and it was like, here's the thing. I watched your YouTube show, and I was blown away.
Really?
Yes, I was, especially the fact of the way you did it, the way you had it with the coffee that morning, and everybody had their coffee. That was something I really did enjoy.
Awesome. I'm so glad you had a chance to check it out. And even more importantly, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. We have a lot of fun on the show. And so it's a blast. We're getting ready to start season 3.
Wow. Season 3.
Yeah, I can hardly believe it.
I'm actually having a little video problems here. I'm trying to get my video to work, but go ahead. We're going to keep moving on. There we go.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So let's jump into this stress-free leadership zone. And I'm so curious about this because I've been in a role of leadership several times. And I've been in a role of leadership where upper leadership would actually put more stress on you, even in public situations, and expect you to bail out, you know? I'm like, I can recall a situation while I was training hundreds of agents and brokers because our company actually is an insurance agency. Our podcast is a spinoff of that. We like to educate people on health and wellness. And that's why we was glad that we brought you in here, because when it comes to stress, it's a key factor when it comes to that poor health. Definitely a key factor. So tell us a little bit about this particular program.
Sure. So, it's interesting. I have been in leadership for such a long time. And in leadership, we tend to do this thing where we got everything all tidy and buttoned up and everybody's walking upright. And, and I said to myself, oh my gosh, how can I just have a conversation, right? I just want to have a conversation. Leave your tie at the door, hang your jacket up, undo the top button, let your hair down, grab a cup of coffee, and let's talk, right? Because at the end of the day, leadership is tough. Yes. And we don't need to make it any more difficult on ourselves because it is hard enough all by itself. So I decided, you know what? I am going to create this environment where I can bring on leaders and have this conversation. It just came to me one day and, Coffee with Rhonda was born.
Okay, so let's back up. Okay, so with your background, what actually pivoted you to focusing on leadership and stress? Was it something personal in your own life as you was being a leader? Or like with myself, I've always sort of I'm a dreamer. I'm a heavy dreamer. And a lot of things come to me through my dreams. And I sort of follow those. So what was it for you?
For me, honestly, so I am a registered nurse by background. And so I sort of grew up.
Before you move on, first I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Because I started my career off in healthcare. And I started to become a nurse, but I've met a lot of nurses in my day, and I don't believe the work you guys do. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough field, and healthcare is tough, and it's not getting any easier.
That,
And so, as my typical day as a nurse was what it was. But then I started to rise through the ranks and started to advance and started to get into some leadership positions. And so, gosh, as I did that, I realized, it's a little hot in here, right? It's getting more and more stressful. Um, and so I got to the point where I was getting ready to consider a position as a chief nursing officer. And I had never had this role before, and I was gonna go for it. You know how you're all excited and gung ho, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I can do it. I know it. So I had a mentor who sat me down, and she said, "Come in here. I want you to sit down." And so I came in and sat down, and she said, "I want you to know that you are getting ready to take on the hardest job in the hospital." Now, my mentor had been a hospital CEO, and so I was kind of like, oh, okay. And she said, "And you need to know what you're getting yourself into." And I said, okay, well, I'm a Taurus by nature. And then I started getting a little bullish. I started thinking to myself, well, is she saying I can't do it? Like, what are you saying exactly? Well, what she was saying was exactly what she said, right? It was the hardest job in the hospital, and the level of stress was unbelievable. And so I took on that stress, and I put my head down, and I did the work that needed to be done, and it took a toll on me. And I got to the CEO level in the hospital. And again, all of this stress and pressure. I remember being on vacation. Heaven forbid I leave my phone behind. I'm like, you know what? We could have regulatory survey at any moment. I was always on edge. And so I dealing with all of that stress and pressure, number one, I thought, does it have to be this way? Right? Can somebody teach me a shortcut? Is something else I can do? But then number two, I had a couple of major life events happen. And when those things happen, it forced me to step back a little bit and take a look and decide, is this really how I want to live my life?
yeah, I can trust me. I can relate. And I think everyone that's listening today and everyone that's going to see this broadcast and listen to this podcast will be able to relate, because it's amazing how we can go through life with so much stress and not realizing that the stress is causing us so much damage at the same time.
Absolutely.
So let's touch base on the stress-free leadership zone. So give me the structure. How is that set up? How would a company benefit from your services?
Yeah, so it's a really great question, Dexter. And I am so excited about this work that I'm doing, because when I made the pivot and decided I didn't want to live that way, I became so passionate about helping other leaders know that you have a choice and you have options. And I don't mean the choice to walk away from a job that you love, right? That's not your only choice. But you do have a choice to decide how are you going to manage your world around you so that you can manage and minimize stress. When I talk with organizations, one of the most important things is, how effective are your leaders? And you can tell by outcomes, right? So we're not talking about just, oh, I think they're great. No, look at your outcomes. Are you organizationally getting the results that you want in your organization? And if not, why not? Because it always goes back to leadership, right? How are your leaders managing themselves? How are you treating your leaders? How are your leaders treating your people? Right? It all goes together. And so when I talk to organizations, I say, let's focus on improving outcomes. Because at the end of the day, in the C-suite, that's what they want to know, right? They want to know, how are you going to help me improve my bottom line? How are you going to get me whatever it is I'm trying to get, a new product launch or increase revenue or whatever those things are. We're going to do that by getting your leaders to the place that they can function at peak effectiveness.
And how do you measure that peak?
So it's really interesting. So what I do with a leader is every person has their own zone, right? And that's one of the things that I mean by the leadership, stress-free leadership zone, because my zone and my tolerance is different from yours, right? So we have to understand that every leader functions at a different level. So we want to allow them the flexibility within that. So what I do is I do some assessing and some talking with the senior leadership team. What does that look like for you, and what feels good? And when do you get to the point where you're feeling like you're ready to, go home and kick the tires? I won't say kick the cat. That's not a good thing, right? When do you feel like you want to go home and kick the tires and, sort of yell at somebody or do those types of things, then you've got a really strong indication that you've exceeded your stress threshold, right? I want to just back up for a moment and talk about, this is so important, that there are multiple types of stress, right? We know that we have good stress, which we tend to call eustress. And that's a good thing. That eustress sometimes can be a super motivating factor in our lives, right? You can get stressed, but it can be an excitement, or you can get super motivated about something. Hey, I'm going to go run through this brick wall because I can do it. I'm ready, right? That is also a type of stress. But then there's also the type of stress that we call distress. And that's the stress that we want to minimize in our lives, that and especially in our work setting, that can, over a period of time, have some pretty significant impacts on us, both physically and emotionally. And then obviously that's going to translate to your work product.
That is so true. That is so true. So now, what do you tell leaders that take their work home? I'm the type of person, once I leave the office, I'm gone. But you got those people that as soon as they get home, they talk about the day in the office.
Yeah. But you know what, Dexter, it's a good question, but where I always go. So then I shift and I go to my emotional intelligence zone, right? And I do a lot of work with emotional intelligence, because for me, helping a leader and just saying, okay, you don't want to have this much stress, you need to get rid of that, is not enough. I need to give them a GPS in order to help them do that. And so I begin to go to, why are you taking work home? Right? You're not taking it home because you think it's the most exciting thing to do, right? You're taking it home for probably many, many other reasons. So we've got to get underneath. There is something, and I can tell you primarily what's at the core is either a real or perceived belief that this is the only way they can do it, right? This is the only way I can stay on top of it. I have a free ebook that I share with folks, and it's called From Stressed Out to Stress Free, right? And in that book, I talk a lot about the fact that limiting beliefs do drive a lot of our behaviors. We don't realize it, of course, that's what it's from. I had my own. When I was working as a CNO and a CEO, I thought this was the way it had to be done. Yeah. Right? I didn't know another way to do it. No one taught me another way to do it. And so, you pick those beliefs up, and then you think, here's one of the fallacies. All right, I'm giving y'all the secrets from the book now, okay, from the ebook. But one of the secrets from the ebook is this fallacy that you're going to catch up as a leader. I almost want to laugh when I say it, right? You're going to catch up. What does that mean?
Now you say it's what was that? Limited beliefs?
A limiting belief.
A limiting belief.
Yeah.
Because when I think about that, I'm thinking about like right now, today. Mm-hmm. Here it is this year. We had this, and I hate to go back on the COVID thing, but that's where we are in this world.
Sure.
And I think that as a whole has basically blocked the minds of people that think that we have to be in the office.
Right.
We have to do things this way, or we can't do it any other way. Mm-hmm. So we're not being successful.
Right.
I tell people this is an opportunity for the world to learn how to work outside the brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perfect example, Dexter. It's a perfect example, because COVID has shattered a lot of limiting beliefs that people didn't even realize they had, right? Because who thinks about that? Nobody walks around thinking, oh, gee, what limiting beliefs do I have today? Right? That's not what happens. It just shows up in who you are and how you function. That's what limiting beliefs do. And so they're not on the top of your mind. Therefore, they can be limiting to you because you don't really realize you have them.
Yeah. And it's funny because our company, when we started up 6 years ago, we worked remote completely. We never were in the brick and mortar.
Right.
We came into the brick and mortar right at the beginning of COVID, and it was like the perfect opportunity because there's nobody in the buildings.
Right.
So there's nobody there. So why not go into the brick and mortar? There's nobody else there but you.
Yeah. I can definitely see how that would work. And, these different times, I know it's really frustrating for people and to be in this and talk about stress, right? This is another very, very stressful time for people to be in. But if you take the opportunity, there are these amazing little nuggets that you can glean from times like this. And you can use these times to shift your life and to create something that's just a little bit better. You don't have to move by leaps and bounds, little small steps, baby steps. And that's what I work with leaders on. Take the baby steps, right? Because when I start talking about nirvana, right, a leadership dream life, they kind of get a little freaked out, right? They're like, wait a minute, I'm just trying to get my work done. You're talking about dream life. I don't know what you're talking about right now. So we have to go baby steps. And so that, you don't have to change everything at once, but we need to start making some decisions so we can start moving you there slowly. Because if you don't move, the organization can't move, right? So walking around and having a bunch of stressed out leaders in your organization, and most executives know they're stressed out. They know it, but they don't know what to do about it. That is the difference. And what I do is I teach them sort of, let's begin with the 5 C's of stress-free, right? The 5 C's of stress-free. If you can just begin there, then we can slowly start to move you forward.
Okay. So we're not going to give away those 5 C's of stress-free because we want people to actually come to you and get that information. So we just want But you're so right, because I know when I was in the corporate world, and I had a stressful day. Like I said, I'm a dreamer. My stress came through my dreams. I would dream about the day and have nightmares from the stress. So that was one of the reasons why I stepped back and realized it was either going to be a battle between the corporate world or my life.
Right. Wow. Doesn't sound like much of a choice. Much of a choice there, right? It's like
it doesn't give you that much of a choice, but when you make the right decision, you realize you can balance. You can come to a decision where you don't have to live a stressed life while you're working.
Exactly, and that's what this is all about, Dexter. Because we don't teach this. Right? If we taught this to folks, if we taught this to our leaders, then our leaders would understand how to structure their world, their workload, and without all of the extra stress. And I'll be really honest with you, a lot of it begins in, this is where people get a little stressed too, because they just want me to give them the answer, right? They just want just give it to me and get poof, stress be gone, right? But it doesn't really work that way. What I have to do with them is
it's not a Xanax pill, people. You can't keep taking Xanax and think the world's going to get better.
Exactly. Listen, there's not that much Xanax in the world, okay? But we've got to help them. We've got to help them understand that it begins with mindset. And we have to do that work because they've been who they've been for years. Right? It's not easy to turn off who you are. Let's say, if someone asks you today, Dexter, you know what? All of a sudden for the next 2 weeks, Dexter, I want you to take all this work home and work every night on it.
And so I'm glad you brought that up because like you said, is not something that changes overnight.
Yep.
And what do the leaders do when they realize they're not bringing everybody else along?
Mm-hmm.
Does that create a paradigm shift for companies? Do they start losing employees, or they finally get rid of the weak employees and bring in the people that they need to have?
It's a great question. What happens is you begin this cycle of leadership turnover, right? So you have staff turnover because staff don't leave typically for money, they leave people, right? So when staff are leaving, they're leaving because their leadership is not doing something, whether that's real or perceived, that, they feel like should be done. So you start having this staff turnover, but then, the organization looks at it and goes, okay, I've got a leader who's not producing. They've got staff turnover. Things aren't going well. Okay, leader, bye. There's somebody out there that's going to do a better job than you. What organizations don't do so well is self-assess, right? As an organization, how have we contributed to this problem? How are we complicit, right, in our leaders? Now, I always go back and I help the leaders take ownership of that. But if I'm the executive in the organization, why am I giving you more stress? Why am I trying to tell you that you should be answering every one of my text messages at 10 p.m. just because we are a connected society? Right? I mean, seriously, I'm like, really? No, not doing that.
I remember those days. Yeah, you're right. 10 p.m. and then your phone ring. Okay. Yeah. Text message.
Yes.
Yeah. So being on salary doesn't mean not having a life,
Right. Are you sure about that, Dexter? Because I'm not so sure that that's not what people think it means. I mean, I see a lot of folks, and you know what? Once again, let's say I'm a new leader. Oh my gosh, we could probably do a whole different show on new leaders, right? But if I'm a new leader and I'm just rising through the ranks, or I'm coming to this organization and I see all of my leaders working at night and never taking their days off and looking at me with the side eye when I want to take a day off, then what am I going to do, right? I'm going to fall in line. And then all of a sudden I have been taught that this is how it is.
Yeah, but you're so right that corporation leaders do not like to look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
They don't take the responsibility of why people are not happy.
Yes. I'm a little odd. I know I'm a little odd, but honestly, I love that conversation with leaders. Give me an executive team all day and we can have that conversation. Because you know what? It is not about pointing blame. It's about empowering you to be better. Who cares who the blame is? How are you going to get better, right? How are we moving forward from here? There is an upside to this and to you taking ownership and accountability to this. And you can really help your leaders, and they will be forever grateful for working for an organization that understands that life is multifaceted. And it is not completely all wrapped up in what they do. And you can help them be better leaders by helping them balance and do the stuff that they need to do outside of work. And then they're better people when they come to work.
Absolutely. Then you get more people actually coming to work and less people calling in, so I can't come to work.
Yeah. There's actually a lot of research on that if people it's an interesting phenomenon that when you ask a leader about time off, they'll all say, oh my gosh, time off is so important. Yet nearly 60% of leaders leave days off on the table every year. They won't take them. Nearly 60% will not take their time off. So again, when we talk about role modeling, what's the message that they're sending to others? That, you know what, your mental health and your family time and all of that all is secondary to what we're doing here in this very important work. Because they often don't realize how connected they are. So there's also a study out there that says if you actually take your time off, you will end up with less sick time, which costs organizations millions and billions of dollars every year because employees are sick.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. But how, now thinking about this, with COVID on top of everything else and companies going back into the workforce now, going back into the brick and mortar, are they going to be looking at more stress?
Yeah, it's really tough. It's this cumulative effect that's happening right now, because not only do you have the stress of just having COVID be a thing, period, is stressful. And then how did that affect your organization, right? Depending on the organization, it may have affected staffing or, processes, and you've got new protocols that may take more time. And you've got all of these changes and things that are happening. Revenue may be down significantly because we know that organizations and our companies are really struggling right now, some of them to sustain. You've got some doing really well in that tech sector and that kind of thing. But you have other organizations that are just struggling to get by. So what do they often do? They decrease staffing, they put more on the manager, right? Because you're the manager. So you have to pick up the extra, and it's called all other duties as assigned. You've got to do all of those things, right? Because you're the leader. So I think absolutely they're dealing with more stress, which is why this time is such a important time for organizations to focus on their leaders and to help them through this time. We're all people at our core and at the end of the day. And how can you help your leaders be better people and reduce their amount of stress so that they can better serve you? Right? This is about you as the organization. We have to help them get that big picture. And when organizations do that, there's a tremendous amount. You hear about companies that are the greatest companies, right? What do you know about those companies? They're like, oh, we have fun, and we take time off whenever we want to, and because they have understood that treating your people in a certain way brings out the best in them, not the worst. Why people don't want to have an open PTO time? Because they're afraid everybody's going to abuse it. That's actually not necessarily borne out by the facts.
I'm just thinking because like the corporate world, basically they always have these group huddles and these little team meetings, and then they have these great holiday parties, those potluck Fridays. Now with COVID, all that goes away. All that was there because to help bring that togetherness and to build a new culture and to relieve the stress. Now that you don't have that, what do they do?
Yeah, they've got to get creative. You can still do those things, but you've got to adapt to the setting that you're in. And certain organizations, to make it even more complex, some organizations have team members that are in the brick and mortar, and they may have reduced the number, et cetera. And then you've got some team members that are virtual. So now the real disconnect potentially between team members even, right? Because you're on site, I'm never in the office. Let me give you a great example of this. In many hospitals during this COVID crisis, only, quote, essential personnel were allowed to stay in the hospitals. Everyone else moved their work off-site. So now, when you used to have folks grounding and supporting the staff and cheering them on and doing all of this, these activities to be a team and to have everyone know we got your back, we're there for you, you just shut that down and half the folks are now not there. So not only do you miss their smiling faces and that energy, but they contributed to, taking care of some of those patients. So, and then to go a step further, you closed off all the visitors.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't want anybody bringing anything in. But what do visitors do? They actually help care for their loved ones.
They do.
So now you've eliminated all of that. And then you're like, great team, we're fine. Everything's awesome. Really? How about that?
And I never thought about that, but you're so absolutely right. You just think about the fact that they said, well, essential workers had to be there. But you have to think about, you have to look at the whole big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then they didn't want to give them a bonus. Come on, people, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's huge. And Dexter, right now they can't, because their for many of them, their main revenue drivers are not there, because those are elective procedures. Well, most of those folks shut down. They're like, I ain't going to the hospital to have no procedure right now. I don't want to be in the middle of COVID and everything else. Well, that's a lot of those types of procedures are the revenue drivers for the organization. And so now you've got less revenue for some of that stuff, right? So the celebrations, the bonuses, all of that, everything gets, and then we missed one other critical group, volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Volunteers, vulnerable population, right? So where are volunteers? Not in the hospitals. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot. It's pretty stressful out there right now, but I need for every leader to know that you can still do things to manage your stress. And for the C-suite, the executive team, you can help as well. Right? You can start by setting that tone, investing in your leaders, caring enough about them to say, go home. You're done for the day. Shut it down. I might send you a text later. Please don't respond to me. When you go on vacation, go. Enjoy your family. How many leaders actually go on vacation and don't check their email?
They definitely got to completely check out,
Absolutely. So that's where we are. That is my passion. My hope is that we can change the lives of some leaders and help them have a life while they still get to enjoy doing the work that they love.
I know this is something that is so important to companies today, especially not just because of COVID, but it's just something that companies have had the stress for years. These leaders had the stress, and now they have this new stress they got to deal with. Mm-hmm. So they definitely need to look to you to help them to build back their self-esteem without being stressed out every single day.
Absolutely.
And people don't realize me doing a podcast helps my stress. Mm. Because I'm more of an introvert.
Okay.
But podcasting opens the door.
It does. Mm-hmm.
And you have to find things that you can do that can get rid of your stress.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And for every leader out there, what do you do outside of work to help your stress, right? What are you doing? Are you taking a walk or a jog, or are you knitting, or what are you doing to help relieve stress?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's so many little things that people can do to actually get rid of stress. Mm-hmm. So definitely can. So tell our audience, how can they reach you? How can they reach out to you? Where can they find you? Absolutely.
So I am pretty social, and they can reach me on LinkedIn at Rhonda Y. Williams on LinkedIn. They can get to me on Facebook at Coach Rhonda Y. Williams 1. Facebook is Coach Rhonda Y. Williams 1, or they can simply shoot me an email, and they can send it to me at Rhonda@loveleadingagain.com. Rhonda@loveleadingagain.com. And I'm always happy to have, even if it's just a conversation, to talk about where you are and where you want to go.
Awesome. That is so awesome, because it's so important for people to realize this is a person who's been a CEO, who's been a nurse, who's been at the front end, who's been at the tail end, who's telling you what stress can do. Mm-hmm. Okay. So people, if you think about it, stress plays a huge factor in our lives.
It does.
And it's not just the people who's giving you those trolls and hate mails on Instagram and Twitter, it's everywhere else too. So
absolutely.
You have to find those outlets and make sure that you're taking care of you It's very important to take care of you.
Very important.
And I have to swing back here because, like I said, when I saw your YouTube show, Coffee with Rhonda, and guys, you have got to check this out. Coffee with how often do you have the Coffee with Rhonda?
Every week, every Saturday, we broadcast at 11 a.m. Eastern. As I said, we are just starting season 3. So actually this Saturday is our restart. And then we'll go through till early December. We'll have guests on and sit down and have that fun, kind, casual, funny conversation where we are growing and building through the whole process.
Now, that is the Coffee with Rhonda show. You can easily find that on YouTube because I tracked it down. I was very impressed with it. I enjoyed it because it was so relaxing. And the conversation was great.
Yeah.
I mean, you had great guests on. You also had an audience that was engaging.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool because you got an audience that's sitting there telling you what type of coffee they got that morning.
It's hilarious. Yeah, they have all kinds of ginger and ginseng. It's so fun, and the audience is international, which is also really
that
fun.
Is true. They were international. That's right. These people were up early in the morning or either going to bed late at night.
Yeah.
That is so true. So, audience, you have got to check this out. You have definitely got to check this out because I fell in love with it. I was like, this needs to be on television. This don't need to be YouTube. This needs to be on TV.
Oh, thank you. I call it The View. It's like the internet, the View version of the internet version of The View. But yeah, we have a really, really good time. In fact, one of my co-hosts is from Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you work that movement out? That has got to be pretty difficult.
You know what? We just make it work. We just make it work. She's amazing. I have, 2 co-hosts and they're both amazing and committed and we just go. And if one of us isn't able to be there, that's okay. We'll just keep on moving and, things tend to work out well. The audience chimes in, they help out. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, you ladies are always welcome to come on HNC Let's Talk because my audience would love to hear from you guys because I fell in love with it because I was like, and for me, I'm not a big YouTuber, so I have to have something that I'm going to watch, and I enjoy it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. That means so much to me. We're going to get better and bigger and everything. And so I'm looking forward to this season coming up. Now, be careful what you ask for, Dexter. We might just all 3 of us kind of come storming the show one day. You never know.
Hey, it's all good. It is all good. Trust me, it is all good. I have no problem with that at all. I'm a people person, but I'm an introvert, but I'm a people person.
That's awesome. I'm an introvert too. See, that's something else we can talk about.
See there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Rhonda, what do you want to leave with the audience today? What advice do you want to give leaders?
I think the biggest thing that I would like to leave leaders with today is you can have a career or a business that you love without the overwhelming stress. The last time I looked at any leadership job description, overwhelming stress was not listed. So you do not have to accept that in your life. You get to choose and you get to decide. And the amazing thing about it is you don't really need anyone's permission. You can make that decision for yourself. And I would love to have an opportunity to help people figure out how to make that transition and that shift in your life. I never want my leaders to miss another special family moment because they feel like they cannot get away from work. That's not okay.
Awesome. Well, Rhonda, I want to thank you for joining us today at HNC Let's Talk podcast. and the door is always open. And to the audience, I want to say to everyone, we're going to get through this COVID thing. It's nothing unusual to us. We done did it before. Just remember, I tell people this all the time, HIV/AIDS was worse. It was totally new. I was part of that generation. And I remember a lot of my friends died because they didn't. So now I'm telling everybody now, listen, Rhonda's from the healthcare field. I'm from the healthcare field. Wearing a mask is not a damn bad thing. Come on. Say.
All right, Dexter, that's a whole nother show, right? You know that.
It's not a bad thing. Come on. And now they're fashionable.
Yes. I can get one with a little Philadelphia Eagle on it. I'm just saying.
They're fashionable. This has become a whole new market in the world. You know, I've seen women getting married with gowns with their lace masks that match the gown and everything. We are a resilient population, people. That's what we do. We basically learn how to adjust, but we need to make sure that we love each other to do it. Mm-hmm. Let's stop bashing each other. Let's just get through this and move on.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
All right, guys. Thank you. Have a great evening. Until next time.